Jesus plus nothing. 100% natural, no additives. Andrew Farley is celebrating your freedom in Christ. Call in and ask your questions at 877-655-100% natural 6755. That's toll free at 877-655-6755. Via satellite from Texas, it's The Grace Message with Dr. Andrew Farley.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Grace Message. I'm Andrew Farley. So glad you're joining us today. That number, 877-655-6755. Right now, we've got wide open lines, plenty of room for you to get in with your question tonight. Maybe you've got a question about a scripture passage, or perhaps you heard something this past weekend in church, or maybe in a Bible study, or chatting with a friend in a coffee shop, and you're just not sure about it. You want to talk it over? Well, let's make it a conversation together right now, 877-655-6755. And if you're a first-time caller tonight, you got to know we love it. We love to hear from our first-time callers. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're a veteran listener, maybe you've already called us in the past. But if it's been a while, it's time to call back and be a part of the conversation tonight. I'll give you that number again, 877-655-6755. Of course, if you're live streaming with us right now on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, whatever it may be, you're welcome to call in and be a part of tonight's interaction as well. I'll give you that number one more time, and let me say, maybe it's not a Bible passage, maybe it's a personal issue going on in your life right now, in your marriage, with your kids, in your church, whatever it is. You're looking for a grace perspective. Join us right now. That number one more time, 877-655-6755. All right, let's go now to Canada for our first call of the evening. We'll talk with Elizabeth. Hey, Elizabeth, what have you got for us tonight?
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Farley, and this is my second or third time calling. Okay, so this is what I have for you. To make a long story short, the divorce I had from my husband was the most traumatic event of my life. And when we were separated, my sister said to me, "Is it okay if your ex-husband and I maintain a friendship?" And I thought, yeah, it's great. Two great people, right on. Now, as time passed on and he had another partner that he's still with, it really upset me that my sister was friends. I found out she was not just associating with my ex's new partner through association, but they had a friendship. That freaked me right out. And I was too embarrassed to tell her that. I tried to toughen up and be accepting. Mm-hmm. And then one day I said to her, you broke a sister code, and I can't handle it. And if I were you, I would end it, because sisters come first. So I gave my view. I wanted to hear her view. And she said, well, you told me it was okay. I said, yeah, I did, because I thought I could handle it. But, this lack of intimacy and a painful divorce, it was too much for me, and I felt that it was unprincipled of her, and she told me this is her having integrity, and I said, no, I think a sister comes first, and you broke a sister code, and we have a very different definition of integrity, and it changed our relationship. I approached her every year to see if she's had a way of thinking, a change of thinking, and she asked me the same, and I said, no, we still have the same position. We learned to live with this situation, and I think it's wrong. If something freaks your sister out, you don't do it, generally speaking. Depends on what it is. But matters of the heart with a divorce, that's not like, well, I want to buy this bicycle, or I want to have that hairdo. This is deeply personal. And it turns out they're not friends anymore. And I thought to her, karma, or whatever you want to call it. But my question is, if something freaks your sibling out, do you, like in this case, I think she should have ended it and not break a sister code. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for sharing that, Elizabeth. I certainly understand your pain. I can't imagine being in that situation, and everything that you're describing about what you felt and what you went through. It's completely understandable because you felt betrayed. And when you go through a painful divorce, you're looking to your family for support. And the last thing you want to see is that your own sister or brother or mother or father or someone in your life like that is that close to you with all that history with you, you don't want to see them taking a side with someone that you have divorced. And so, you feel betrayed. And so here's the issue, is that you felt all these things and really you decided to bottle it up and you didn't express it. And some time passed, months and years maybe passed, where you didn't say anything. And so your sister, she's not a mind reader. She wasn't able to read your mind. Now, you could say, come on, sis, don't you have some common sense? I mean, don't you have some godly wisdom here? The writing is on the wall. When your sister gets a divorce, it's painful and it's awful, and you need to be at her side helping her get through this. So, obviously, from the outside looking in, that is a no-brainer. And I'm really, really sorry that your sister did not see that, and yet there's another side to this. So I just want to speak to both sides, and that is that you didn't express it, and then she thought her job in this was to be full of integrity by coming to you and asking for permission, which you gave. So we've got a conundrum at this point, you see. Now, fortunately, there's been months and maybe years past, and now you're on the other side of all of that. And so the way forward is pretty clear. Why is it so clear? Well, because obviously you've been hurt, you've been betrayed, and the solution on your end is to forgive your sister. Now, forgiving your sister is going to help you, because you've got a lot of pain, a lot of hurt, you've got a lot of damage that's been done. And so forgiving your sister would look like this. Sis, you owed me. I mean, you owed me respect, you owed me understanding, you owed me camaraderie and a listening ear, you owed me loyalty. That's a big one. And yet you didn't pay up. You didn't give me what you owed me as my sister. And that's the expectation that I had of you. But I am a forgiving person in Christ, and I choose to forgive you, and I'm going to release you from what you owe me, because we can't go back in time, and you can't make up for it now. You'll never pay me back. You'll never pay me what you owe me. You'll never be able to make up for it in some tangible way. So the only healthy way forward is for me to forgive you. Now, I'm not saying that you need to say this to her face, but you need to make an appointment with God where you write down everything she did to you. And number one on that list is she betrayed you. Number two is that she owed you loyalty and she didn't come through. So she didn't meet your expectations. She didn't help you get your needs met in the moment. She didn't provide a listening ear, an understanding ear. Instead, she went to the other team. That's what it feels like. So you make an appointment with God. You recognize that look at you. You're a child of God. You, Elizabeth, you have a forgiving heart. You've got a new heart. You've got Jesus living in your heart. I'm not telling you you need to forgive her because it's some religious duty. No, don't misunderstand me. I'm saying I know who you are, Elizabeth. I know who you are. You're the righteousness of God, and you've got a new resurrection heart, and you've got love written all over your heart, and you've got forgiveness written all over your heart. So you're never going to be happy, never finding contentment with this or peace until you choose to forgive her, cancel the debt, and release her from what she owes you. Now, on her end, she's not calling in asking for counsel, but I'm glad the relationship is over, that the friendship has ended, and now it's a time to move forward and build back this relationship if you can, if she wants to, and if you decide to. But I think you do want that. I don't think you want to go 40 years not talking to your sister over this. It was awful, and it was painful. And you know what? You're right. I mean, you win. You win, Elizabeth. You win the argument. You know, if we surveyed 100 Christians, they're going to side with you and say your sister should have stuck up for you, and something fishy was going on there, something funny when she takes the side of your ex-husband instead of, rallying to your side as a loving sister. So you win. It's a slam dunk. I mean, as far as what should have happened, you're right. But now here we are, and it's too late. So what are we going to do from here? And that relationship has fizzled anyway, so maybe it's a rebuilding time. But it starts with forgiving your sister. So take an hour, sit down with God, tell him what you felt, what happened, what took place, what it did to you, the pain it caused. Write a letter. I mean, put everything in there. Sis, you betrayed me. Sis, you weren't loyal. Put everything in there. And then present it to God and say, God, I know who I am. I know I'm a forgiving person. I know I've got a loving heart now. You gave it to me. And so I choose, and I hope you hear that word, I choose as an act of my will to forgive my sister and release her this day. And I'm going to remember this date. Here it is, January 23. I'm going to remember this date, and I'm going to mark it down, and this is the day that I canceled my sister's debt. And that's how you move forward. And then when those old thoughts come up and those old feelings come up, you can say, I remember the day. It was January 23rd when I forgave her and I released her debt. So I hope that helps. That's the healthy way forward, Elizabeth. No other way is going to work. So this is an incredibly healthy way for you to live from the heart and move forward. And if you'd like to, then from here you can build that relationship with your sister. Now, you're not in some guilt obligation to do that, but just follow the work of the Spirit inside of you. He's going to inspire you and give you wisdom. All right, let's go now to Virginia, and we'll talk with Matthew. Hey, Matthew, what do you got for us tonight?
Hey, Pastor. Hope you're doing really well. And just wanted to ask you, I was just trying to understand some things better in the Bible. I wanted to understand how Abraham was saved even though Jesus wasn't around yet. And I wanted to know also what happened to Jews before Jesus, if they went to hell because they didn't have a sufficient saving grace. And I also want to know about the thief on the cross, if paradise was heaven, is the same thing, and how he got saved even though Jesus hadn't died yet.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, those are all great questions, and we'll work backwards. So, first of all, Jesus says today you'll be with me in paradise, and that is heaven. I mean, it's a fancy word for heaven. It's a Jewish word for heaven. It's a word that the thief on the cross would have recognized. Jesus didn't have time to teach a theology of heaven. So he called it what he needed to call it in that moment, which is a beautiful place, a paradise, and it's with Jesus. So when you're in the presence of the Lord and you're in a place that looks like paradise, yes, you can call that heaven. So there's many ways that we could express what heaven is, but it is certainly being in the presence of God in a paradise. So I wouldn't overthink that one. It's definitely heaven. Then, as far as what saved that thief on the cross, this is a really interesting thing because I believe it shows us the heart of God. We keep thinking that getting saved or being justified or being made right with God, we think it's so complicated. We think it's so difficult that there's this, lengthy method or methodology or procedure we must go through. And remember what the Lord told Abraham. He said that the people that are in heaven, the people that are with God, are like the sand at the seashore or like the stars in the sky. Now, that's a lot of stars, and that's a lot of sand. So what that tells me is that we're going to be blown over. I mean, we're going to be shocked at the number of people that were made right by a simple faith in the Lord. Now, I get it. I get your question because, it's much easier to talk about people that are saved after the cross, after the resurrection, and after the apostles are presenting the way forward. I mean, because then it's very obvious. If you call upon the name of the Lord, if you hear the gospel and believe it, if you open the door of your heart to Jesus, you're saved. And that's clear. But what about everybody that came before that? I mean, the thief is one example, and we can deal with him. I mean, the bottom line is he looked to Jesus, and Jesus was right next to him. And he said, remember me. So what does that tell you? Okay, number one, the thief believes that Jesus is God, that he has the authority to save, and that he has the power to save. And the thief, by saying, remember me in your kingdom, that's assuming something. That's assuming that I can turn to this man who is God, and I can ask him to remember me, because I know who he is, and I know what he's capable of, and apparently he's capable of rescuing me and saving me eternally and bringing me into a kingdom. So that thief on the cross didn't have some elaborate sinner's prayer. I mean, he just had one sentence, and it was basically, save me. I'm looking to you. Remember me. You can do this for me, and I trust you to do it. So that was his request, and that's why he was saved or justified. Now, before Jesus, we have these many, many centuries. I mean, lots of biblical history where Jesus has not come yet. And so how were people saved? Well, you go back and look at Hebrews 11. That's that heroes of faith chapter. You see all kinds of people, Abel and Enoch and Noah and Samson and David and others. And it's pretty clear that they were saved, and the answer is by faith, right? Yeah, now, you want to dig into that? What does that mean? Well, it's that faith that's the size of a mustard seed, which is really tiny. So apparently it's really, really easy to get saved. And that's why I think people miss it. I mean, it's hard because it's easy, if that makes sense. We got the whole world trying to work really hard to get saved, and then God's saying, no, it's easy. And all you got to do is just believe me. And so Abraham believed God, and it was reckoned to him as righteousness. Rahab, who was a prostitute most of her life, she believed God and was justified. So what's God looking for? I mean, this is the heart of our Father. He wants you to believe him. Just believe him. Just trust him. And here, I'm not even just talking about getting saved. I'm talking about what delights God. Now, what is it that delights God today, even for his children? Yeah, you've already believed him to be saved, but it delights him when you believe everything about him, about his goodness, about his gospel, about all that Jesus did. It delights him to no end to just see his children walking in the truth and believing him. It is faith that pleases God. Without faith, it's impossible to please God. So that's something to think about as a believer. Now again, the short answer for the Old Testament believers, they were saved by faith. What exactly did they have to believe? Well, they had to trust God. And when God saw that trust, it justified them. When God saw someone's heart just turn toward him and say, Lord, I believe you and I trust you, then God saw that mustard seed-sized faith, and he says that person is justified. I don't care if they were a prostitute, they're justified. I don't care if they concocted a plan B with another woman like Abraham, they're justified. So I hope that gives you something to think about, even for you tonight, Matthew, that God delights when you believe him. It thrills him to no end. All right, well, let's go now to California, and we'll talk with Nadine. Hi, Nadine. What have you got for us tonight? Oh, all right. We'll go to Florida, and we'll talk with Nelson. Hey, Nelson, what do you got for us tonight?
Hey, Andrew. Thanks for taking my call. So, Andrew, I've been discipling this guy for 2 years now in the Grace Message, and I received some news from him that's really kind of was heartbreaking for me, because he said to me that, because I asked him, I've been meeting every week, studying the Word and everything. And so finally he said to me today, he says, you know what, I don't want to read my Bible anymore. I don't want to pray anymore. I just want to be a Sunday, go to church on Sundays. And I was like, he said, I just feel like I just need to take a break, and he's been attending my Bible study / church now for 2 years, so he's well steeped in the Grace Message, and he just wants to take this kind of like, I just want to just take it easy, and I think I know I've learned a lot about grace, and and I know God loves me, and it's like I said to him, I said, that the enemy doesn't take a break. The enemy is going to constantly be at you, tempting you, and it's like you're not guarding your heart, you're not renewing your mind, you're just kind of comfortable, like you're just comfortable, and I understand grace that we rest in the Lord, but like to me it's like we live a life where we have to be on guard, be sober minded, be vigilant, because your enemy, the devil, is like a roaring lion, and he just says, well, I'm just good for now. He says Sundays is just good for me, and I didn't know what to say to him.
Right. Sure. All right, well, I would recommend saying, okay, and just leave it at that. I don't get it. I mean, Nelson, I'm just going to be candid with you. He's been in your Bible study for 2 years, and the guy's turning to you and saying, I need a break. And so I would give him a break. I would just give him permission to be himself. He's not sinning. He's not doing anything wrong. He's not even seeking to leave the fellowship of a church. He's saying that he wants to go gather with the saints on Sunday. So let's give him freedom. I hope you're not doing Bible study because you feel like you have to. I know you're not. I know you well enough that you have a heartfelt motivation to lead that group that you're leading in Florida. And so be it. That's awesome. But when somebody says, I want to leave this Bible study and just focus on church on Sunday, the only loving response to that is, okay, well, we love you and we'll be here for you when you come back. We'll always leave the light on. You're always welcome. But we also want you to know you're free. So I don't think you need to give him any sermonettes. I don't think you need to give him any lectures about the enemy. You're talking about his routine. And so what? If he's been in a Bible study for 2 years, give the guy a break. I mean, let him go to church on Sunday, have the week off, and who knows? It might last 6 weeks, it might last 6 months, it might last a year. And he goes, I'm really kind of hungry again to dig back into the Word with a small group of people. And then there you are, waiting and ready for him. But if you fill him with sermonettes and lectures about the enemy and all of that stuff, you're going to push him away anyway. You'll never see him again. So give him the same freedom that we all enjoy in Christ. The man has not sinned. He has just changed his weekly routine. So respect him and love him and allow him to be led by God's Spirit just as you are. It's not always about us and our location. Sometimes we got to let the saints go free.
For more information on the broadcast ministry of Dr. Andrew Farley, please visit andrewfarley.org. That's andrewfarley.org. Join us next time as we invite you to celebrate the Grace Message with Dr. Andrew Farley. This program is sponsored by your generous financial support.